Welcome to the Sweat Simple podcast. I'm Brooks, and I'm an online fitness, nutrition, and mindset coach who's here to help you learn how to eat and exercise for real life, not just those perfect moments. Because let's be real, there is a lot of conflicting information online, and it can be hard to know what's legit and who to trust. In every episode, I'll be sharing the science and psychology behind health, fitness, and long-lasting behavior change, but I'll also be sharing practical, real-life application because all of the best info in the world only matters if you can apply it to your real life. So grab a coffee, water, glass of wine, or lace up your walking shoes, and let's dive in. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Sweat Simple podcast. Today is getting a little bit spicy, a little bit controversial. So I'm both nervous and excited to record this episode because it is a way of thinking that I really used to buy into and that I now recognize can be harmful. And I really felt it was important to make this episode because I think a lot of women, because this is so normalized on social media, I think that a lot of women think that thinking this way is normal and it is Fitspo. And this is just what you do when you have goals. And this is just what you do when you're a gym girly. And I really wanted to create this episode because thinking this way, and again, I used to feel that way. I used to think that thinking about food in the way that I'm about to share was normal. I thought I was the epitome of health. I thought I was like a gym girly. I was really proud of that. But what I now know as a coach who is trained in health mindset and behavior change, and as a coach who has greatly improved her own relationship with food, is that we cannot be thinking about food this way because it is to some degree a bit disordered, for lack of a better term. So today we're talking about when tracking macros is helpful versus when it leads into more of that disordered eating territory. And I want to be really clear, eating disorders and disordered eating are two different things. I am not qualified to help or talk to anyone who has an eating disorder. If you think that you might have an eating disorder, please talk to a qualified therapist, or there are often eating disorder dietitians. Disordered eating is not things like anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder. Disordered eating is more the way that we are thinking about food, thinking about our weight, and in an unhelpful way. So different than an eating disorder. This episode was inspired because I saw a social media post about having quote unquote gym rat vision in the grocery store. So the post was looking around the grocery store and kind of defining each section of the store by macros. So she panned to the chicken and was like, high source of protein. She panned to the red meat and said, bad protein source, too high in fat. She panned to the juice aisle and said, empty liquid calories, not worth it. On the whole chip aisle, it was just a giant nah. And on one hand, it's like, haha, okay, funny post. It had a ton of views and I understand why. It's very relatable. It's funny. I get it. I can, relate to the humor. But on the other hand, it made me really sad because, like I said, that's how I used to think about food. And you might be sitting here right now saying that this is how I think about food. I look at food and I think about the macronutrient content. I think about how this food is going to fit into my calories, and I decide if that food is worth it or not purely based off the macronutrient content. Everything is in relation to how it fits to your calories, the macros, and you're really categorizing foods as good macro foods and bad macro foods. I am pro tracking calories. A lot of my one-on-one coaching clients track calories. That is how I started my fitness journey, was tracking calories. Tracking calories can be really, really helpful when it comes to getting that education about your food, learning about the macronutrient content of your food, understanding what a proper portion size actually looks like, developing awareness to how much we're eating. I am very pro tracking calories. But what that video was laying out was not a very healthy relationship with food, because food is so much more than just its macronutrient content. Food is celebration, enjoyment, taste, stress relief, health. Like food is health. And if we're only looking at food through a macro lens, it can lead to a lot of stress and a lot of overthinking around food. I actually just had a consult call for one-on-one coaching with someone the other day who mentioned that in the past they had worked with a macro coach, but at the end of the day, they still didn't know how to eat vegetables. And I think this is a really great example of how sometimes tracking macros falls short because macros focuses on macronutrients. It doesn't focus on micronutrients. And sometimes foods like avocado and fruit are obviously higher in carbs and higher in fats and higher in carbs. So if we're only focused on hitting macros, we can start to avoid certain health foods because they're not fitting our macros properly. And what that potential client was explaining was that she still didn't know how to incorporate vegetables because vegetables are mostly like micronutrients. We're not eating a ton of broccoli in order to hit our protein target. So where do those fit in? And you could argue they fit in from, a volume perspective, but just tracking macros isn't really teaching us how to eat for health. And again, I just want to be so clear because I feel like I need to share this. Like, I am pro tracking calories. It can be such a useful tool, but that's what it should be used for, to make more informed decisions around food. Tracking macros, tracking calories should not be your guiding star and the only thing that's helping you decide what to eat. So, I wanted to share a few things to look out for if you're trying to decide if tracking macros is currently helping you or if perhaps you're getting to a point where it's becoming a little unhealthy. So, these are all just meant to be points of reflection. And if at any point you're nodding along saying, yeah, I think this is me, shoot me a DM. Let's talk more about it and how we can start to shift your relationship with food to be healthier. And I want to give the caveat too that if you're doing some of these things to some degree, it's okay. It's okay if we're even doing them to a large degree. But what it means is that we could benefit from working on your relationship with food. So, this is not about judging yourself. This is not about diagnosing yourself and saying, wow, I have a really disordered relationship with food. That's not what this is about. This is meant to help you do a little bit of reflection because especially if you are deep in like this macro tracking content right now, you are probably thinking that the way you're thinking about food is really, really normal. And you haven't stopped to pause and ask yourself, is this still benefiting me? Am I still using this in the right way? Or have I kind of lost the plot a little bit and maybe I need to make some adjustments? So that's what this is about. It's just about bringing awareness. It's not about judging yourself. It's not about getting down on yourself. It's not about, freaking out and thinking, you are really disordered or anything like that. I don't want it to come off that way. It's just meant to help you reflect and start to determine if we do need to work on your relationship with food a little bit more. So, first question to ask yourself: why are you tracking calories? What is the main benefit you're getting from it? Is it helping you learn more about the food you're eating? If so, positive, amazing. We love that. On the flip side, is it to police yourself and put guardrails on yourself? So, do you feel like I'm tracking calories because if I don't track calories, I will go off the rails? I'm tracking calories because I don't trust myself to not track calories. If it's those two things and it's more about policing yourself, putting those guardrails on, maybe this is something that we want to explore a little bit. All right, second question: how long have you been tracking consistently? And I don't mean like, well, I tracked for a few days here and I tracked for a few weeks and then I kind of stopped. That isn't tracking consistently for a long period of time. I'm talking like, how long has it been since you've tracked 90% of the time? So I'm talking 5, 6 days a week, 4 to 5 weeks out of the month, depending on the month. How long have you been doing that for? If it's been over a year or two, we might need to check in on that because at some point over that year or two, you likely have a good understanding of what a proper portion size looks like. You understand if I put this amount of food on my plate, it's probably about this amount of calories. So if we're still tracking past that, we're probably not getting any new information about portion sizes, about the amount of food we're eating, about what we might want to change. And then we might be getting more into that. Well, I'm tracking calories because this is my guardrail. I'm tracking calories because this is how I stay on track. So that's what we want to explore a little bit more. So just think about how long you've been tracking calories really, really consistently. I get a lot of DMs around like, "Oh, well, I'm never gonna stop tracking calories. I like tracking calories is how I stay consistent." And if that's how you feel, like, amazing, track calories forever. But I know for most of my clients, when they come to work with me and for myself, the goal is always to move to more of a place of intuitive eating. So in order to do that, we don't need to be tracking calories for 3+ years. Like at that point, we have the education, and we shouldn't be tracking every single day. So all right, when you think about not tracking calories, how does that make you feel? So when you think about in the future, I'm not going to track calories, or if someone told you you can't track calories for the next 2 weeks, how would that make you feel? If you're immediately feeling kind of nervous, kind of scared, kind of concerned, we want to explore that a little bit more. Oh, and I'm gonna be honest, a lot of my clients, when we do start making the transition away from tracking calories, they have some of those feelings. Or, our very first time when we're working together and I say, "Hey, you're going on vacation. What if we like didn't track this week?" A lot of times that first initial feeling is, "Oh, that makes me feel nervous. Oh, that makes me feel scared." So then I always say, if we're feeling that way, it's probably a really good time to practice not tracking calories because we want to get more comfortable with not tracking. We want to get more confident in the fact that we don't need to be tracking. So if you're having a lot of feelings of nervousness, of worry about what would happen if you stop tracking, this is something we want to explore. The next question is, how do you feel if you're over your macros or if you know you'll be over your macros one day? If you're like, it's not a big deal, it's one day, it's not impacting my progress, awesome. We love that. If on the flip side, that makes you feel really upset, if you start feeling really guilty, if it makes you feel nervous to think about going over your macros, that's something that we really want to explore. Next question. Do you ever avoid doing things where you can't track your macros? So your friends invite you to dinner and it feels like really complicated to track your calories and you're not sure how to do it. So instead of, going and enjoying yourself, or instead of going and trying to figure it out and recognizing you can't be perfect, you stay home. You decide not to go to the social event. Or, let's say like anytime your family's going out to restaurant and you don't know how to track your calories at that restaurant. So maybe like they all order takeout and you stay home and you don't get anything and you just stick to like your meal prep. Anytime we are avoiding doing things just because we can't track or we can't track perfectly, that's something that we want to raise a flag on. All right. Do you sometimes sacrifice health for the sake of hitting macros? So going back to that example I shared earlier, do you sometimes catch yourself like not including avocado just because it's high in fat? Or maybe you find yourself like never eating fruit because it's high in carbs. And both of those things are obviously really good for our overall health. We want to be eating fat for our hormone health and for energy. We want to be eating fruit for all the amazing fiber and micronutrient value in it. So, do you find yourself avoiding traditional health foods because they don't fit well into your macros? If so, again, we just want to explore that. And do you think, this is the last one, do you think you could not track calories and trust yourself to make decisions in line with your goals? Or do you only trust yourself when you track macros? If you know, hey, I could track calories and I can still build the balanced plate. I can track calories and I know that I can feel in control around food. I cannot track calories and I can know that I can still stop eating when I'm full. Amazing. We love that. We're using calorie tracking as a tool then. If on the flip side, again, calorie tracking feels like your guardrail and you really don't trust yourself to make smart decisions or make decisions that are in line with your goals, or leave food on your plate, or not eat past the point of fullness when you're not tracking, then we want to raise awareness to that because it's a good indicator that we need to develop some long term eating skills along with tracking. And the only reason that I am sharing with this with you guys and that I'm asking you to ask yourself these questions and to start to bring some awareness is because I know firsthand from being there myself what it's like to be in the cycle of only thinking about food in terms of macros and calories. I know what it's like to be jigsaw puzzling food together and picking foods every week that only fit my macros, but that I don't even like very much. I don't like sweet potatoes very much. And when I was really deep in my macro tracking, I was eating so many sweet potatoes. I don't like them. I was also eating a lot of spaghetti squash. I hate spaghetti squash. It is not good. Sorry if you like spaghetti squash. It's not good to me. I don't like it. Um, and that is no way to live. I wasn't eating foods that I really enjoyed. I was never really looking forward to my meals. Food was like purely just fuel for me. And anytime I was eating things like bananas, chips, getting a fun drink at Starbucks, my immediate thought was, this isn't worth it. This is going to blow through my macros for the day. That is just such a stressful place to be living. And I know how freeing it can be when you stop only thinking about macros and start focusing on the overall picture. Yes, portion control and intake do matter, but so does eating for health. So does eating foods we really enjoy. So does being able to enjoy meals out. All of that matters. And I want you guys to get to a place where you're not thinking about food 24/7 and mentally calculating macros all day long. And if that feels really far off, if you answered yes to a lot of these questions and you're recognizing that maybe you don't have the healthiest relationship with tracking macros, that is exactly what we would do together in one-on-one coaching. I want to help you learn how to trust yourself without tracking. I want to help you improve your relationship with food. I want to help you feel more in control around food. I want to help you build the long-term eating skills that you need so that you aren't having to track forever and you can still feel really confident in your choices even when you're not tracking. I would love to work with you. I would love to free up all of this mental energy. There is a link to apply in the show notes, and I would be so excited to get you to this place of enjoying food, enjoying what we're eating again without having that gym rat vision at the gym. So thank you guys so much for being here. If you have questions, if you want to dive into this deeper because you're realizing you answered a yes to a lot of those questions I posed, please do not hesitate to shoot me a DM. I'm always here to support you guys. Let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, I will talk to you all next week and I'll see you soon.